In the quiet town of Stonebridge, Anna Walker was found dead in her own kitchen, a gun loosely in her hand. What appeared to be a tragic suicide quickly unraveled into something far darker. Detectives soon discovered a forbidden affair between Anna and her stepson, 19-year-old Nathan Walker. The hidden relationship, fueled by obsession and secrecy, spiraled out of control, ending in a deadly confrontation. As the investigation deepened, one question remained. What pushed this twisted relationship to the point of murder? Daniel Walker, a successful businessman in his late 50s, had built his life on control. Control over his career, his emotions, and his family. After losing his first wife, he struggled to connect with his son, Nathan Walker, who was just 15 at the time. In marrying Anna, Daniel hoped to restore the balance in his life and rebuild his broken family. Anna, a confident woman in her mid-50s, seemed like the perfect partner for Daniel. She provided companionship and stability. But their marriage masked a growing tension within the household. Nathan, who never accepted Anna as his stepmother, became increasingly distant. Over the years, his quiet resentment shifted into something far more dangerous, an obsession. Nathan, now 19, had transformed from a brooding teenager into a handsome, charismatic young man. The indifference between him and Anna turned into a forbidden attraction with deadly consequences. The Walker family was never quite the same after the sudden death of Daniel's first wife. Her passing left a deep void in the family, one that Daniel couldn't fill, no matter how hard he tried. He was a man of action, successful in business, determined in life. But when it came to his son, Nathan, he didn't know how to bridge the gap. Nathan, only 15 at the time, became quiet and withdrawn, bottling up the pain he felt after losing his mother. Daniel believed that marrying Anna was the solution. He saw her as a second chance, not only for himself, but for Nathan as well. He thought Anna could bring stability and warmth back into their broken household. Confident, kind, and eager to help, Anna seemed ready to step into the role of a wife and stepmother. But her presence had the opposite effect on Nathan. For Nathan, Anna was not the fresh start his father imagined. She was an intruder, a constant reminder that his mother was gone and could never be replaced. He resented her from the beginning. The more Daniel praised Anna, the more Nathan pulled away. He withdrew into himself, spending long hours locked in his room or wandering aimlessly through town, growing more and more disconnected from his father and from the world around him. Daniel, however, was too busy to notice the growing distance between his son and his new wife. His work as a high-powered executive kept him away on frequent business trips. Weeks at a time, he would be absent, leaving Anna and Nathan alone in the house. It was during these long stretches of time, with Daniel away and the tension in the house building, that the dangerous dynamic began to develop. Nathan's resentment toward Anna began to shift. He was no longer just angry. He became fascinated by her. Living under the same roof day after day, their interactions grew more charged. Anna, initially trying to win over her stepson, found herself drawn into a complex and forbidden relationship. With Daniel gone, lines were crossed, and the already fragile family dynamic took a darker turn, one that would lead to devastating consequences. The tension between Nathan and Anna had been building for months. What started as resentment and cold indifference slowly shifted into something neither of them could fully understand. Nathan, now 19, no longer saw Anna as just the woman who had replaced his mother. The resentment remained, but beneath it was an undeniable attraction, one that neither of them dared to speak about. It was on a rainy night, with Daniel away on another business trip, that everything changed. The storm outside had cut the power, plunging the house into darkness. Anna was in the kitchen lighting candles when Nathan walked in. There was an awkward silence between them, the kind that had become almost normal in the house. But this time, something was different. Nathan approached her, his eyes intense, full of emotion he hadn't expressed before. Anna felt the shift immediately. She could sense the weight of his presence, the way he stood just a little too close. The rain hammered against the windows as they stood in the dimly lit kitchen, the air thick with unspoken tension. Without warning, Nathan cornered Anna by the counter. She could see the storm in his eyes, anger, desire, confusion, all swirling together. For a brief moment, she thought about pulling away, stopping what she knew was about to happen. But she didn't. She couldn't. Nathan kissed her, and everything spiraled from there. The passion between them was raw, reckless, fueled by months of suppressed feelings. They crossed a line that night, one they could never uncross. As the rain continued to pour outside, the guilt began to settle in. Anna knew this was a betrayal, not just of Daniel, but of everything she had tried to build within the family. Yet in that moment, the forbidden nature of their affair only seemed to draw them closer. What started as a one-time encounter quickly grew into something far more dangerous. Each stolen glance, each secret meeting, pulled them deeper into a web of lies and deceit. And though both of them knew it couldn't end well, they were powerless to stop it. The affair became their shared secret, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. As the affair between Nathan and Anna deepened, what had started as a moment of passion on that rainy night quickly spiraled into something much more dangerous. Their stolen moments, once brief and hurried, became a regular part of their lives. When Daniel was home, the tension between Nathan and Anna was palpable, their secret pulling them toward each other even in the most mundane moments. When he was away on business trips, they would steal every opportunity to be alone together. Each meeting was more intense than the last. They met in the shadows of the house, behind closed doors, in darkened rooms, always fearful of being caught. Their desire for each other grew with every secret embrace, feeding on the danger and the deception. But while Anna tried to keep their relationship hidden and under control, Nathan was changing. What had once been infatuation turned into obsession. Nathan became possessive, jealous of the life Anna continued to live as Daniel's wife. He would constantly text her when they were apart, demanding her attention, needing her reassurance. Anna, now trapped in her own web of lies, found herself pulled into his growing obsession. She tried to manage his emotions, but Nathan's feelings were too intense. He couldn't stand the thought of Anna being with his father, even if it was all just a facade. Their secret relationship turned into a dangerous game, one that neither of them could fully control. Nathan wanted more from Anna, more time, more commitment, more love, while Anna felt the weight of the affair crushing her. She still cared for Nathan, but she knew it couldn't continue like this. Nathan's obsession was becoming dangerous, and it was only a matter of time before the truth would come out. What had begun as a forbidden romance had escalated into something much darker, driven by Nathan's growing need to possess Anna entirely. And though they both knew the risk, the pull between them was too strong to resist. As the weeks went by, the thrill of the affair began to dim, overshadowed by a growing fear. One evening, Anna took a pregnancy test, her heart racing as she waited for the results. When the two lines appeared, a wave of panic washed over her. She realized that she was pregnant, and the father could only be Nathan. The weight of this revelation crashed down on her, intensifying her guilt and fear. Anna knew that she had to tell Nathan. They met in the same kitchen where everything had begun, the atmosphere thick with tension. As she revealed her pregnancy, Nathan's expression changed from excitement to shock. His face drained of color as he processed what this meant. Panic filled the room. This wasn't just a secret affair anymore. It was a ticking time bomb that could destroy their lives. Nathan's reaction spiraled into desperation. He began to plead with Anna, insisting that they could find a way to keep the baby and make things work. But Anna felt overwhelmed. She understood the gravity of their situation. The affair had already caused so much pain. Adding a child into the mix would only complicate matters further. In the days that followed, Anna grappled with her choices. The weight of her actions felt unbearable. She wanted to end the affair and tell Daniel the truth, believing that honesty was the only way to move forward. But she was also terrified of his reaction. Could he forgive her? And what would Nathan do if she ended their relationship? As Anna contemplated her next steps, the idea of having an abortion began to take shape in her mind. It felt like the only way to regain control over her life, to stop the whirlwind of secrets that threatened to consume her. Yet, the thought filled her with guilt. How could she make such a decision after everything they had shared? The affair was collapsing under the weight of their choices, and Anna knew she had to act quickly. Time was running out, and the truth was closing in around them. The future felt uncertain, and every decision weighed heavily on her heart. As Anna tried to distance herself from Nathan, his infatuation transformed into an all-consuming obsession. He couldn't bear the thought of losing her, especially after learning about her pregnancy. The more Anna sought to end their affair, the more Nathan became fixated on her. His feelings turned dark and possessive, leading him to seek her out constantly, desperate to keep her from making any decisions that could end their relationship. Nathan would wait for moments when Anna was alone, finding ways to corner her and express his feelings. He flooded her with messages and calls, trying to remind her of the passion they shared, pleading with her not to let go. But Anna's resolve only grew stronger. She wanted to tell Daniel the truth and move on, but Nathan's relentless pursuit made it increasingly difficult for her. Caught in his spiraling emotions, Nathan's thoughts began to darken. The fear of being exposed weighed heavily on him, along with the dread of how his father would react. The thought of facing Daniel's wrath was unbearable. Nathan became consumed by a growing sense of desperation. He started to imagine scenarios in which he could silence any potential fallout from their affair. The idea of killing Anna, once horrifying, began to creep into his mind as a solution to their problems. As his mental state deteriorated, Nathan began rationalizing this dark thought. He felt trapped, and the idea of taking drastic action started to feel like the only way out. The obsession that had once fueled his desire for Anna now morphed into a twisted need to control her fate. Nathan was no longer just a lovesick young man. He was a figure gripped by fear and desperation, teetering on the edge of an unspeakable act. When Daniel returned from his business trip, he immediately felt that something was off in the house. The air was thick with unspoken tension, a heaviness that hung over everything. He noticed Anna's once warm smile was now strained, and she moved with a stiffness that was unfamiliar. Nathan, usually defiant and rebellious, had turned into a shadow of himself. He slunk around the house, avoiding eye contact and retreating to his room as soon as Daniel arrived. At meals, the atmosphere was uncomfortable. Anna and Nathan barely spoke, their interactions reduced to awkward silences. Daniel caught fleeting glances between them, each one loaded with something unsaid. Anna's expression would tighten whenever Nathan entered the room, her knuckles turning white as she gripped the edges of the table or her wine glass. It was clear that whatever bond had once existed between the three of them was now fractured. Daniel's instincts kicked in, warning him that something significant had shifted. The closeness that had defined their family was replaced by a growing distance. Nathan, who had once been openly challenging, now seemed cold and withdrawn, consumed by thoughts he wouldn't share. Daniel noticed how Nathan would lock himself in his room for hours, his demeanor darkening with each passing day. As Daniel moved through the house, he felt an unsettling undercurrent. He couldn't pinpoint the source, but he sensed that both Anna and Nathan were keeping secrets. The once lively home felt like a breeding ground for tension, a silent battle that neither adult was willing to confront directly. Despite his growing concerns, Daniel hesitated to address the issue head-on. The house, which had once been a sanctuary filled with laughter and warmth, now hummed with an ominous energy. As he lay awake at night, he could hear the soft creaks of footsteps and doors opening and closing, each sound amplifying his unease. It was as if the walls themselves were witnesses to a dark secret that was about to be revealed. The night of the murder unfolded like any other, but beneath the surface, both Anna and Nathan were battling their inner demons. Anna lay in bed, her mind racing. Guilt and fear churned within her as she grappled with the weight of her pregnancy and the consequences of the affair. The pressure felt suffocating, and she could not shake the feeling that everything was spiraling out of control. Nathan, meanwhile, paced in his room, consumed by obsessive thoughts. The thrill of their secret relationship had morphed into a dark fixation. He felt trapped between his love for Anna and the fear of losing her. His mind was a storm of anxiety and desperation, and he feared what would happen if she ended things. He couldn't bear the thought of Anna revealing the truth to his father. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, the house fell into an unsettling silence. Anna, unable to find peace, slipped out of bed and wandered into the kitchen. The dim light cast shadows around her, amplifying her sense of isolation. She thought of Nathan, their moments together, and the turmoil that had engulfed her life. The thought of confessing to Daniel weighed heavily on her heart. In that moment, Nathan emerged from his room, his face shadowed but filled with an intense energy. He approached Anna, and the tension between them felt electric. They both knew the stakes had risen. Their relationship was on the brink of destruction. Anna felt a rush of fear as she looked into Nathan's eyes, realizing that he was not just desperate, he was unstable. In a sudden fit of panic, Nathan grabbed the gun he had hidden in his room. He had thought about this moment too often, spiraling into darker thoughts. The idea of losing Anna was too much to bear. As he entered the kitchen, he was torn between wanting to protect their secret and fearing that it would all unravel. In an instant, everything changed. A heated argument erupted as they confronted the reality of their situation. Anna's voice trembled as she urged him to let go, to think clearly. But Nathan, overwhelmed by emotion, felt cornered. In a moment of sheer panic, he raised the gun and pulled the trigger. The deafening sound of the gunshot shattered the silence of the night, echoing through the empty halls. Anna collapsed to the floor, lifeless, as the gravity of what had just occurred hit Nathan like a tidal wave. In that horrific moment, the fragile thread holding their lives together snapped, plunging them into a darkness from which there would be no return. After the gunshot rang out, Nathan was left in a state of shock and panic. In a desperate attempt to cover up what had just happened, he quickly staged the scene. He knew he had to make it look like Anna had taken her own life. With trembling hands, he placed the gun in her lifeless hand, trying to create a narrative that would divert any suspicion away from him. As dawn broke, the tranquility of the morning was shattered by the grim reality of what had occurred. When Daniel returned home from his business trip, he felt an unsettling tension in the air. The house, once a place of warmth, felt cold and unwelcoming. Anna's absence was palpable, and a sense of dread crept into his heart as he moved through the rooms. Daniel soon found himself in the kitchen, where the scene unfolded before him. His eyes widened in horror as he saw Anna lying on the floor, her body contorted and pale. The gun, cold and heavy, rested in her hand. Blood pooled beneath her, stark against the pale tiles. Daniel's heart raced, and disbelief coursed through him. He couldn't process the sight. His wife, the woman he loved, was dead. His initial instinct was to believe that Anna had taken her own life. He remembered the struggles she had faced, the weight of her emotions. A wave of grief and confusion swept over him. How could this have happened? Why hadn't he seen the signs? The thought of losing her felt like a nightmare he couldn't wake from. As he stood there, his mind raced with questions, but there were no answers. The house that had been filled with life and love now felt like a mausoleum. Daniel's heart sank deeper as he realized that the truth he was about to uncover would shatter the fragile world he had built. The police arrived at the Walker household and quickly ruled Anna's death as an apparent suicide. At first glance, everything seemed to align. Anna's lifeless body on the kitchen floor, a gun loosely held in her hand, and no immediate signs of a struggle. To investigators, it appeared like a tragic end to a troubled life. However, as detectives began their work, details started to emerge that complicated the initial assumptions. During a search of Nathan's room, they discovered a second gun, hidden but carefully placed. This unexpected find raised doubts about the suicide theory. Why would there be another gun in the house? Was it connected to Anna's death? Suspicion began to shift away from the idea that Anna had acted alone. The investigation took a darker turn when an autopsy revealed a critical detail. Anna was pregnant at the time of her death. This revelation completely changed the focus of the case. It was no longer a question of whether Anna had ended her own life. Now detectives were looking at it as a potential murder. As the news of Anna's pregnancy spread, Daniel was forced to confront a devastating truth. The unborn child wasn't his. This shocking revelation deepened the mystery surrounding Anna's death and added layers of betrayal and confusion. Suddenly, everything Daniel thought he knew about his family and his marriage felt like a lie. He was left not only mourning the loss of his wife, but also grappling with the painful possibility that someone close to him had been involved in her death. The investigation was far from over, and the answers only seemed to bring more questions. The investigation took a sharp turn when detectives began piecing together the dark truth behind Anna Walker's death. Forensic evidence and witness interviews started to paint a different picture of the Walker family, far more complicated than anyone had imagined. Neighbors and household staff hinted at growing tension between Anna and Nathan. Their relationship, once marked by cold indifference, had become something far more troubling. Through phone records and private messages, the affair between Anna and Nathan came to light. It was no longer just a theory, but a central part of the case. The detectives now had a motive: jealousy, obsession, and the forbidden relationship between a young man and his stepmother. Ballistics tests provided the final piece of damning evidence. The gun found in Nathan's room was confirmed to be the murder weapon. The conclusion was clear. Nathan had shot Anna that night in a moment of panic and desperation. What had started as a secret, forbidden relationship had spiraled into a fatal confrontation. Nathan was arrested, his face blank as he was led away by officers. He wasn't the angry, rebellious teenager he had once been. Now he was a young man facing the weight of his actions. As the case closed in around him, the reality of what he had done seemed to finally settle in. The dark secret that had stayed hidden for so long had finally come to light, leaving only devastation behind. Daniel Walker's life was shattered beyond repair. The man who had built a successful business and married a second time, hoping to rebuild his family, now faced an unthinkable reality. His wife, Anna, was dead, not from suicide, as he had first believed, but murdered by his own son, Nathan. Worse yet, the affair between Anna and Nathan, the woman he trusted and the son he loved, was revealed to be at the heart of the tragedy. Daniel's grief was overwhelming. He had already lost one wife, and now he had lost another. But it wasn't just the death of Anna that broke him. It was the betrayal. Anna had been carrying Nathan's child, not his. The truth of their affair hit him like a physical blow, and he couldn't comprehend how the people closest to him could have kept such a devastating secret. His home, which he had once tried to fill with love and stability, had been turned into a place of deceit and tragedy. As the news spread, the town was in shock. The Walker family had always been seen as respectable, with Daniel being a figure of success and order. But now, whispers filled the streets, and Daniel found himself at the center of a scandal that consumed the community. Everywhere he went, there were stolen glances, hushed conversations, and judgmental stares. The man who once commanded respect was now drowning in shame and isolation. His world, his family, and his reputation were destroyed. All he had left were the pieces of a life he no longer recognized. The Walker family tragedy left deep scars that could never heal. Nathan's affair with Anna and the murder that followed destroyed a family and shattered lives. Daniel, once a proud and successful man, was left broken and alone. What began as a quiet attempt to rebuild a family ended in betrayal, loss, and a scandal that would never be forgotten.